Madam President, I'm just wondering, at what point do you consider this truly a disaster?
Well, we need some more data to see if this wall of water that's approaching California, if that's what it is, reaches land and knocks out buildings.
This is Improv in Real Life. I'm Jude Treder-Wolff. In this podcast, we'll explore how improv can help us navigate the speed of life through conversations with experts who are wise, hilarious, and deeply human.
It's 4:30 in the afternoon, and I'm hiding in the nurse's station at the hospital where I work. I've been working here for about 5 months. It is my dream job. Here I am in a hospital in New York City, and I'm working as part of a department of creative arts therapists. It's just amazing. It's everything I ever wanted. Run by a movement therapist named Jillian. She created this whole department, and I'm on a team with an art therapist named Brenda, a drama therapist named Michelle, and myself, a music therapist. In my last job, I was the team. I was on my own, and now I have this backup, and it's a union job. It's amazing. So the one wrinkle in this whole thing is that everybody else in the department has a degree higher than me. Everybody else has a master's degree. I have a bachelor's degree. Jillian hired me saying, with all the experience you did at your last job, and if you're taking classes towards your master's, I know you can do this job. I want you on this team. So I love that she hired me. I also feel this discrepancy. I feel like I constantly have to justify my existence in this job. In the last month or so, about 4:30 in the afternoon, Michelle, who will find me, and she kind of is a person who sort of appears next to you, just like a ghost. You don't see her coming. She'll just appear and she'll say, "Hey, Jude, don't make it bad." That's what she said the first time she met me. She says it every day. "Hey, Jude, don't make it bad. Listen. I know I have to do the paperwork today, and I'm a little bit behind. And, I'm on the faculty at Hunter, and we have a meeting, and I've got some notes I have to do for that. So if you wouldn't mind just finishing up our paperwork before you leave today." And of course I say, yes, I'm so grateful to be on a team. But the thing is, what's happened is she finds me, I say yes, I do the paperwork, and then I'm late leaving. And if I don't leave on the dot when our workday is over at 5, I am late for my class that I have to be at to keep my job. That starts at 5:35 on 12th Street. So I'm hiding from her because I don't know how to get out of this, and I know she's going to find me, and it feels ridiculous. So I succeed in hiding from her. I leave on time, and the next day I sit down with Brenda. She's the team leader on our unit, and I say, "Brenda, I don't know what to do, but, Michelle is definitely taking advantage of me. She's always finding me right at the very last minute, because if she didn't find me at the last minute, it wouldn't count. Like, it wouldn't be that she's run out of time. It's calculated that she's leaving this work for me." And Brenda says, "Well, you have to talk to her. You have to say to her, listen, Michelle, your time and my time, both important. My time is as important as your time. Just because you have a meeting at Hunter, whatever, doesn't matter. My time is as important as your time. I have to leave at 5:00. I cannot do these notes for you." And I'm thinking, okay, great. That's great. My time is as important as your time. My time is as important as your time. So Tuesday, I'm not hiding. "Hey, Jude, don't make it bad. Listen, I got to pick up my daughter at daycare, and she, you know how it is. I know you don't have kids or a husband, but someday you might know what this is like, the pressure of being a working mom. But I just didn't get to all the paperwork, and I'm just hoping that you can finish it before you leave today. Thank you so much." And I've got Brenda in my head. I'm like, my time is as important as your time. And then I'm thinking, but I don't have a husband, and I do live across the street, and she lives in Brooklyn, and she's got all these pressures on her. And so I say, okay, all right, I'll do the notes. And I feel really disappointed in myself. And now I'm avoiding Michelle on Thursday because the same thing is going to happen. I know it's going to happen. And I have my performance review, my 6-month performance review with our boss, Jillian. And I say to Jillian, I don't know what to do. I want to be a team player. I want to pull my weight. But I'm with somebody else who doesn't think that I'm as important as her. She's like, "That isn't true. You know that isn't true." I go, "Jillian, it's kind of true." She's on the faculty at Hunter. She's got all these other responsibilities that I don't. And she says, "Your time is as important as her time. You've got to make that clear to her. You two have to figure it out yourselves." And I feel on the inside, I feel hopeless. Michelle's never going to listen to me. The next time it happens, I collapse. she starts crying. You know what it's like to be a working mom? Do you have any idea? And I'm like, no, I really don't. And so I say to Jillian, my boss, could we meet with you together? Because I want to see what Michelle does when it's not just her and me in a room. I never can get Brenda in on this. I think she doesn't want to be triangulated. I understand completely. But Jillian is the boss. So I make a meeting. I want to see what she's going to do in front of Jillian. And I say, so I've got to struggle, because if I do the work that you want me to do, that is, we've agreed is going to be what your part of the team is, then I'm late for class. And if I'm late one more time, it's going to be marked. I might lose a grade. Like I might go down a grade because I've been late so many times for this class. And Michelle says, well, I'm on the board at Pratt, and we're doing a journal article, and that's important for this department. And then Jillian puts her hand up and she says, Michelle, cut the crap. And I feel 1,000 pounds lifted off my shoulders. And Michelle starts to cry. And Jillian is like, Michelle, cut the crap. You're a professional. Are you crying because you have to do your notes? And she doesn't say, Jude, you're right, and Michelle is wrong. And I feel so supported by that. And I am telling you, she never did it again. But I understand why Jillian wanted us to try to work it out together, to exhaust every option of me leveling up, of me not feeling less than, and of Michelle sort of doing the right thing. And all of those options could work. In this case, it needed leadership. It needed somebody to step in and say, I've got the authority to tell you, change your behavior. So I love this conversation that I have with today's guests, Kirsten Henning, who consults with organizations all over the country and the world, training leaders, because often people are elevated to positions of leadership and don't have the training in how to actually lead. And Kirsten uses creative methods, a lot of improv, to help people get those skills and develop in the role. I hope you enjoy. If you enjoy stories like this, head over to Spotify and check out Funny Story with Jude Treder-Wolff. They're true stories from my life, often told live on stage. Thanks for listening.
This podcast is brought to you by LifeStage. LifeStage provides opportunities for people to gain skills and knowledge for navigating today's uncertain world. The capacity for creativity, connection to new ideas and other people, collaboration, and community building. For more information, visit lifestage.me.
I'm so excited to have my friend Kirsten Henning on the pod today. And before I let her get a word in, I want to say one of my first memories of you, Kirsten, was when we were in a class together called The Beast with Nick Kanellis at Magnet.
Yes.
And I remember that was a very big class. There was like 15 people in that class. And for people listening, not knowing what The Beast is, Nick Kanellis specializes in very physical comedy and very physical improv, very body-based improv. And the exercise is about becoming an animal and then being that animal in sound and movement. And then that animal, sound and movement, becomes a person who makes that sound and movement. And it's so interesting and funny and reveals a character immediately. And I was scared of it because body-based stuff really freaks me out. And I take it on purpose because I'm not comfortable with it. So it really pushes me. And I remember we had to pick our favorite animal and walk around the space, and you were the only other otter. I was like, oh my gosh, that woman is doing the otter we were both like tossing rocks and making the same sound. And we didn't know each other then, but I thought, okay, we were both otters. I love her.
When you first mentioned The Beast, immediately my mind went to otters. Immediately.
But of course you did.
Of course
we're
it did.
Otters, you and me. We're otters.
Otters, and the scene, I think you were in that, I don't remember, where it was a bunch of woodland creatures, which could involve river otters, not sea otters, probably. But I think I played some sort of porcupine/raccoon who was singing in a church.
Yes, I remember that.
And I've never had a scene like that ever again.
There's things that happen in that class that could never
right.
happen because of the animal-based inspiration for your character. It's so beautiful and powerful. Anyway, that's how we met. That's where we really connected. So
That's
thank
where
you
we
so
met.
much for doing this today. And
Thank
I'm
you.
thrilled that we're talking about the topic that we chose, that is your topic, which is leadership and how improv plays a role in the work that you do, in the worlds that you operate in, and bring improv to those worlds. But really, you're bringing the gifts that improv, the side benefits of improv in terms of leadership. So I would love for you to share. Let's start with how you're using leadership skills in what world, and let's start with talking about how you use improv there.
So I run my own business and I work with all kinds of organizations and companies, mostly in the US, but all over the world. And I use improv in a lot of training and coaching settings. So I find it's a really good way to help people with public speaking. It's a great way to help people lead teams. It's a great way to better connect with coworkers. And I often get feedback that the skills people are getting, then they can also use it like in their personal lives with family members and friends, which to me, I'm always happy when teams work more smoothly, but I think to know that people are using it in other aspects of their life is really meaningful to me. So it's a lot of workshops and then just incorporating little bits into, how we kind of move through the world. I think a lot of the key skills we need to be good improvisers are the same skills we need to be good leaders and good team members, whether that's in a family or in a company or in a nonprofit or whatever you're doing with your life.
So let's talk about the leadership side of it, because you have a vision about leadership and a philosophy about leadership that to me seems very improv inspired, and the way improv teams are formed and continue and how they work together. It seems to me that's your leadership philosophy. Is that right?
I think so. I think, when I first started getting into improv, I remember a day where I thought I was very nervous to join a scene, and I did it. And the scene went a completely different direction from what I had imagined. And I really think that that's like the beauty of improv, and that it takes other people to kind of create ideas and get them off the ground. And no one really knows where it's going to go. And often it's something that's quite magical and delightful. And I think that that is a metaphor for leadership, that when you're working in teams, if everybody really cares about each other and the goal, you're going to go a direction that probably none of you actually know in the beginning. But if you work together, it's worth it. And I love that. And I think the more that you do improv, that becomes the norm. And even though we get nervous, which I think is actually good and okay, we don't know how a scene or a show is going to turn out. And there's like this excitement of wondering where it will go. And I think that that's a great way. That's a great mindset when you're working with groups. So prior to the pandemic, I was asked by Girl Scouts in Alaska to come and do a leadership training, actually with younger girls, and kind of
What's younger? What do you mean by younger?
Oh, yeah. Great question, because this is a key part of the story. So I was told maybe like end of elementary school. So maybe like fifth and sixth graders. And when I got there, it actually turned out that a lot of things had shifted that day for them at camp outside of Anchorage, at Camp Singing Hills. And so they said, can we just do the whole camp, which is ages 5 through 18. And I thought, oh, that wasn't exactly what I was thinking, but you know what? This is it right here. Let's do it. Let's rock and roll. So I changed all of my activities on the fly, which again can feel really scary, but it's also very exhilarating, And of course, nobody else knows. So I ended up involving the whole camp. And of course, 5-year-olds will often raise their hands, but then they might be too shy to actually jump up and join the activity. So we ended up I just created a talk show right there in which I was actually the host. And then we had some older girls as the participants in our talk show. And then for the 5-year-olds that kept raising their hands, I finally just asked one of them, would you like to create a theme song for our talk show? So yes, she did. So she finally, because there's no speaking involved, right? So she got up and hummed a song off the top of her head. And then after we'd take these little commercial breaks on our talk show, and I would ask some of the other little ones to come up and add an instrument to this theme song. And that was the way we got everybody engaged. And I have never thought to create a talk show. I've done a talk show format for improv many times, both as like in the scene and as the host. But I had never thought to, add this accoutrement of having the theme song. So you never know.
That's an awesome story. So let's unpack what was happening inside of you as you prepped for this. So you're thinking, oh, I have middle school, like a fifth. That's a great age. like the first
Right.
A's that you thought you had, that they love doing stuff like
Yeah.
improv. They love doing things in groups. They're very amenable to all that. And it's kind of easy to prepare for that group. And you get there. And then what happens inside of you as a leader?
Yeah.
Like what happens inside of you when they kind of throw you this curveball?
So what happens inside of me is first and foremost is that moment of like, oh, wow. Okay. Like there is an element of, nervousness or fear of like, wait, this isn't what I was thinking. But then there's this other voice that's like, this is going to get really interesting. And I wonder what's going to go down. So you kind of go into this mode of what's possible, right? What makes sense for this group? And I had done a talk show format like that with younger girls in other Girl Scout settings. So I said, let's start with that. So my mind went to that. And then I thought, I've never actually incorporated kindergartners before. So I'd never went in an improv setting like that. And so I thought, how do I bring them in? And they were so willing to participate, which surprised me because all of their hands would shoot up. But then as soon as I came up on stage, it was like I was speaking, a language from outer space. There was like no recognition that I was even saying, okay, come on up. So I thought, what do I do with this? But I think for me, I just kept thinking, what else is possible? What else can I do? And to be so gentle in real time, to not judge what you're doing. I think that's really the important thing, because as soon as you start to judge, is this going to work? Is this okay? Are they going to like this? It can spiral really quickly, right? Because I think that the audience and in real life working with groups, they pick up on, do I feel comfortable working with this person? Do they feel a level of confidence? Do they feel that they can? Because all of improv is about taking a risk, right? And so leaders want to provide an environment where people feel that they can do that and the others will back them up. So as you're the moderator or facilitator, you got to model that. You got to model that. And later on, what's interesting is that some of the older girls, they would have been in high school, and some of them were right out of high school. So they're actually the counselors, which, age-wise, they're all kind of in the same world. But we know there's a huge difference between being 5 and being 18 or 19. And the older counselors that knew about the situation came up to me and they're like, wow, not only did it go so well, but we had so much fun. And I think that's such a compliment.
It's a huge compliment because you weren't just leading there. You were improvising in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to do next? And you're just like one beat ahead of them because you're leading at the same time you're making it up, which is sometimes when I teach therapists, use this metaphor that you're building a bridge at the same time that you're walking on it. When you're helping people make change while their life is changing, like while life is changing or while society is imposing something on us that we didn't choose. We're just faced with it. We're adapting to it at the same time that we're actually using it or doing it. And grief is like that. You're walking through it. You're dealing with it and walking through it. You don't have a warning. There's no warning. It's like now you have to deal with this. So what you're talking about there, it's a perfect example of walking on the bridge at the same time that you're building the bridge. And then you are actually you're not just training them how to take a risk, you're taking a risk. Because what if and I think that's where the improv training, for anybody that's scared to take an improv class, just know this. If you're scared to take an improv class, you're like everybody else in the world because we all want to feel like we know what's going on. And all of a sudden you'll think that you're going to be on the spot like those 5-year-olds. In reality, you'll be fine. And if it doesn't go fine, it'll be funny. It'll just be funny.
If it doesn't go fine, it'll be funny. I love it.
And the same with I don't know if you would do this in front of a group of, I don't know if I would do this in front. I would say, I'm going to try an experiment. Let's see how it goes. Because, and I also think that models for people, you can try things and then you can say, what was great about that? What worked and what didn't work?
Yes.
And you can model for people. We can talk about what didn't work. We're not blaming anybody. We're just saying that part didn't work so well. If it didn't, but this did. So that's amazing.
It's amazing. And I grew up in Girl Scouts my whole life, and my mom also grew up in Girl Scouts. So it's so interesting how, in many ways, too, there's so much about that world where you're learning by example, right? Especially summer camp, like you're seeing how people handle things in real time. I definitely experienced a lot at camp growing up, but it's partially seeing it and witnessing how people deal with things. And then it's the debrief afterwards, right? It's that whole thing of, and even as adults, to have caring individuals or individuals, I guess I'd say individuals who care about you and your progress to sit down with you and actually talk about what's working and what you might want to change. It's a huge gift.
So
Yeah.
speaking of not knowing what is coming at you, let's play a game. And let's do this exercise where one of us doesn't know what's going on and has to figure it out based on the clues the other person is giving us. You want to try? Yeah, I mean, you should.
Of course I do.
This. Okay, great. Do you want to explain it for the listeners, what we're going to do?
Okay,
and then we're going to need Natalie, my producer, for this as well.
We're going to need her. Okay, so this activity has many names. I like to, because when I do this with Girl Scouts or other like women's training groups or workshops, I like to call this Madam President. So this person is in a leadership capacity and something has happened and they have been called in to give a press conference about this situation that has occurred, but they actually don't know what has happened. And normally if it's a bigger group, we will have a group of her advisors kind of acting out as charades. But in today's case, we don't have a side group of advisors. So we're going to just have one person act as a reporter who's going to be asking questions. And as we ask the questions, we're going to find out exactly what this event was. Now, Madam President is the president. And so she is going to have to exude all of the confidence as though she knows exactly what the situation is, when in all reality, she doesn't know.
So Natalie's going to come up with what the event is. If it's a press conference, it has to be a high stakes event. Something has happened. It could be a crisis or it could be a good thing. Okay. It could be something really exciting or it could be a crisis of some kind. So you're going to private chat that to one of us. Kirsten, do you have a preference of being Madam President or being the reporter that's asking the questions?
You know what? I feel like being the reporter.
Then I shall not know.
Okay, great. So I'm going to chat Kirsten.
You're going to private
the
message
event is. Okay,
Kirsten, and then we're going to have a press conference.
Okay, great.
Okay, I've just dropped it in the chat.
Dun, dun, da, da, dun, da, 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 da. Here is Madam President at the podium. I'll be ready for your questions now.
Yeah, this is Julie Johnson, and I am from the California Tribune. And my question is, what exactly is the plan for removing this situation?
Well, we need some more data to come in order for us to actually put together a detailed plan that we would be ready to share with the public. We're working behind the scenes to gather all the information that we can so that when we have a plan, it's something we can put into action immediately. Any other questions?
Madam President, this is Julie again from the California Tribune. I'm just wondering, at what point do you consider this truly a disaster? Because I'm getting reports and this is coming in, it's crossing over into California waters, crossing right in.
It will be a disaster when we have confirmed loss of life and property. And we're just waiting for the data to come in to see if this wall of water that's approaching California, if that's what it is, reaches land and drowns or knocks out buildings. But we're just waiting to see if that's really what's going on.
I see. So this is Julie again from the Tribune, and I'm getting some sources here saying that we do have kind of the union of animals are letting us know that in fact we're seeing issues with fur and fins and encroaching on their way of life. That we're just wondering, like, how quickly can you get kind of some cleanup crews out here, I think is really our basic question.
You mean the fur and the fins?
The fur and
the fins unions have gotten together, is what?
Yes.
The fur and the fins are joining forces.
Yes.
The fur and the fins. On the fins, that's the water. And the fur, that's the forest.
Well, I think the creatures that also...
I am the president, but I find this amusing.
Well, I don't think the fur and fins crew are going to find this very amusing.
No, it's a disaster for them, this fire and tsunami coming at them.
Are you saying that now the oil spill has turned into a fire?
It has. I, as the data is coming in to my brain, the oil spill has erupted and activated some fires. And the fires have been we thought it was a tsunami. Really what it was guys trying to put the fires out. So unfortunately, the fur and the fin union, they're going through a lot right now with all the oil on them.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I think they're just wondering, at this point, what the game plan is.
Right. A lot of divers. A lot of guys.
When you say a lot of divers, can you quantify that, Madam President?
Oh, a lot of people, a lot of Navy SEALs and military that are trained in removing oil from animals and from wildlife of all kinds out there scrubbing those ducks. Okay, let's go this scene. I don't know how close I got.
The only time anyone has ever laughed about an oil spill off the coast of Oregon. The only time ever, right here, live. Oh my God.
It's basically my worst nightmare because I love the Oregon coast. So
I'm not going to argue with you. It's a beautiful place. Jude, have you been to the Oregon coast?
I have. Yeah.
Have you been to the Sea Lion Cove? It's
no.
Both, right? I don't know what either of you have been doing with your lives, but I recommend it.
I gotta go.
It's loud. Well, in the distance you drive up and you're like, what's going on? It's because they're barking. You can hear them.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's talk about I had a lot of fun and I started laughing as Madam President. So was just very funny to me. So I'll talk about what worked. Let's talk about this. Let's just break it down. Like what worked and what was difficult. What are the leadership things we're pulling from this exercise? Like what are the leadership skills that we're learning through an exercise like this? I'll say from my side, and then I'd love to hear from your side. But one thing is the collaboration between two players that is, you just have to listen so closely and then take a chance and know that it's probably not even in the ballpark, especially it's starting out.
Exactly. And then for the person or the persons, right, who might be in the reporter role, in the end did end up saying the word oil spill, right? But the idea is like not to let the president know right off the bat what's happening. But the listening part is the most important thing because that's also where you discover the fun when it comes to improv. So I was trying to think like, how do I ask a question that gets her closer to this? I'm like, well, a lot of these animals, some of them have fur, some of them have fins, and this just evolves into this, what we call it, the fur and the fins and fur union or whatever. Yeah, that's where it's like listening for the little details, I think, is where the magic is at. And in the real world, details that really matter.
I agree that in the real world, where this feels very familiar to me, in lots of situations where I've been given half the story in some professional capacity. A lot of times if I'm as a consultant and I go into an organization and I'm assigned to do something with a group of people, and I literally have half the story, if that. Maybe I have a third of the actual reason that I've been called in. And the 2/3, this one time I remember, it was the New York Public Library. It was many years ago. So I did a lot of trainings for different New York Public Library locations. And I was encountering, they were fun. Like there was about emotional intelligence, about communication, and about dealing with the public, which I think of as very interesting and fun and very dynamic and sort of very improv related. And I would find a lot of people in the room with arms crossed and grouchy faces. And it would take maybe a half an hour to figure out that they were there because they were told they had to go and they felt that they were being punished because they had a bad interaction with a patron or a colleague where it got tense and that they were there as punishment. It's kind of like when people say to their kid, I'm going to send you to therapy, and the kid sees therapy as a punishment. And then if you're encountering that person, 2/3 of the information is like what really happened and why they're so, you have such a small story of the reason why they're there. And part of what you do in interacting with people is draw out why do you feel this way? And how can we turn that around? Because that's probably the most important work. They're not going to be able to learn anything. So anyway, in a leadership position, this can often happen where you just don't have the whole story, or you're dealing with a group of people that you can only tell part of the story to because of, like, a president, same, or a person in an organization. So it's a great exercise for just experiencing that uncertainty and being on the spot and do the best you can.
Right. Right. Because oftentimes, and there's a lot of work that I do too, where I might have information from different parts of the organization, right? And you're kind of trying to lead the group, and you're going to have to accept the fact that you can't always be 100%. Everyone isn't always going to have the same access to information. That's just a part of managing any group, right? And so it's like, how do you work within that space? And I think too, sometimes we really focus on, do I have all the details? Do I have all the information? But actually, like, a lot of improv and group dynamics is, the other part of it is being able to just understand, like, what are the underlying needs of a person in real life? What are underlying needs of a character? What is the relationship between these folks? Like, all of these dynamics really matter in order to drive something forward or to make a scene work in improv.
Well, if people never do scene work, let's say they just take improv for fun or self-development, they're going to do a lot of games. Like, this is a game, but it has a context because we know kind of what a president is about, and that they're giving information that's useful and necessary, but not giving information, ideally, that would freak people out or isn't real. I mean, ideally.
Right.
Or the leader of an organization, not mislead people, actually lead people and take them down a certain corridor that you want them to go down knowledge-wise. And that's really what this exercise teaches you to do, to fine-tune it. Those questions became more pointed as you thought about, what do I want to put in her head? I want to put in her head that animals and fish are both affected. And you gave me that without, the fur and fin union was very funny. It was just a funny idea. And that planted the idea that, okay, I thought of forest fire. I thought of tsunami. You did give me the coast, I think, at the very beginning. But there's a lot of parallels to being only able to give out certain information. If you're a leader, even parents have to deal with this. Like telling a kid, your dad lost their job and we no longer can send you to camp. And there's certain ways to share that information, and only so much that that a kid can handle, for example. And exercises like this are ways to kind of work those muscles of taking in and absorbing what the other person is giving you, and the other person and the person in your role thinking about, what can I give that person that's appropriate and useful without the whole story.
Yeah. And it really works. I think I lived for a long time in Japan, and, not just Japan, but particularly there, how we work with clients and how we work with customers. It's a whole other level. And that's another place where you have to be really, really sharp about the language you're using, how you explain things to people, especially when things haven't gone exactly the way that you wanted them to go. And I think about that a lot, because everything in improv, right, we're making a choice. And that's the same thing in real life. And it's easy to feel like, well, it's a tough situation. I did this, I did that, but we're still making a choice. And and again, like, I really credit a lot of this to improv, and probably growing up in Girl Scouts too, is like, tough situations don't always have to be painful. Tough situations, like when we get together and kind of figure out how to sort something, are really rewarding. And, the team really starts to build like a foundation with each other, right? And we see this with like really well-oiled machines for improv teams, and also any kind of group out there, whether it's, corporate, nonprofit, whatever, a family, Girl Scout troop, you feel it.
I want to share a quick story, and then we have a game that's about this idea of the whole team working together on something. And we're going to do that game. My husband and I used to do a week-long teen bereavement camp, and they didn't know each other, these teens. The only thing they had in common was that they all were grieving someone or had lost someone at some point in their life that was a key person. When people have nothing else in common except something they don't want to think about and don't want to talk about, it's very difficult to bond. And yet teens really need each other. in general. They need each other. So they
Yeah.
feel so isolated out in their world. And here they are in this. And the thing is, they didn't have to pay for the camp. We raised a lot of money. The founder of the camp raised a lot of money. So our first day, our job was just to get them to come back the next day, because they could just say, I'm not going back if they hated it. And it was the improv games, just playing games and doing things that we would spend 1 hour that started with just being so funny. It started with fun first thing in the morning. So from 9 to 10, we were doing improv games. And from 10 to 11:30, they're in each other's arms. And a pile, if somebody was going through something, because what improv would do was lower those defenses and they would become a team, because the thing they had in common, we were saying what you also have in common is creativity and imagination and a love of play. And everybody here has something special that they're bringing, like a special sauce. So we would always start with superhero, where what is my super strength? But it had to be a real strength. I just wanted to also make the comparison of working with the Girl Scouts, is that every day we really didn't know what kind of drama was going to unfold and if they were going to stay in love with each other.
Right.
They fall in love with each other through improv, and then they would deepen that connection through the work that they did. And then we'd go kayaking or play golf or do something really fun. And then at the end of the day, we'd have an ice cream social and like process the entire day. So every day just felt like we were building the bridge while walking on it, because it would go deeper and deeper and more secrets would come out. And then we would do improv at the beginning and end of the day. So it bookended with fun and creativity. And it was just the best. It was just the best thing. And it was not easy.
No, so there's a huge tsunami, the triple disaster, earthquake and nuclear reactor explosion in northeastern Japan. And there's some programs that are still run today. I started them in 2012, and I'm really grateful to be part of it. We work with children and elders that sort of survived the disaster. And of course, now time has passed. So much of those programs are students coming from Japan to talk with people in disaster zones in other parts of the world. So I usually work with them in the US. But one of the first programs I worked on, of course, it was the first year or two after the disaster. And I found that, much like you were just describing, that humor is often this really interesting bridge. And I had lived in most of my time in Japan. I lived in Western Japan, like we have our own dialect. And so, and it just turns out that a lot of comedians are from that part of Japan. And so when I'm working with, usually when I meet people in Japan, I don't use a lot of that language, but it will come out just naturally because my personality, it's most natural for me. And I think like the combination of these students from a different part of Japan, they don't use that dialect, but I remember some of them starting to share about their experiences, and for me just unintentionally like just coming out with like like the equivalent of like, oh my God, in this like local dialect. And it just sort of broke a lot of the hesitation, because it was also a way of really validating what was going on. But it was ridiculous. And I almost felt embarrassed that I had just kind of like said this. But later on, some of the students said that it was just so shocking. Like this, this person from the US is using this language. But again, it's like the humor really, I don't know, it's like this magical thing that sort of breaks that apart. And that was actually my first foray into improv, because after that, then I sat down and got really curious about what is the connection between humor and grief, and humor and pain, and humor and tough stuff. And then I started doing some expression. That's how I ended up at the Magnet Theater, where I met you a few years later.
We became otters together.
We became otters. But yeah,
I love that story about, the fact that you worked with these trauma survivors. And I'm impressed that you can speak Japanese at all, much less know the dialect of the Japanese that you're speaking. What kind of brain you must have.
I don't know.
Unbelievable. And I think you should brag a little bit about your work with the Seattle Mariners.
Many years ago, after I came back, I worked in Japan for a long time, and I came back, and then I ended up working for the Seattle Mariners in the media relations department. But a lot of my work was interpreting for Ichiro Suzuki and the Japanese press corps at the time. And then I went on to work for Major League Baseball and the very first World Baseball Classic, which just had our 20th anniversary, which was and the first tournament we won. We've gone on to win other tournaments. It was a pretty amazing experience. And I was just back in Japan for the 20th anniversary of the World Baseball Classic, and a lot of memories. I was often the only woman And so a lot of memories of thinking on my feet. Yeah, for sure. It
I
was a
love, oh
pretty
my
wild
gosh,
experience. Yeah.
that's so interesting. And that's just a whole other part of it. I just let you a chance to
Oh,
like
thank you.
just like share about that. So let's do this game that deals with another aspect of leadership that you had mentioned to me. What you had mentioned is, and in talking about the teen bereavement camp made me think of this game also,
Yeah.
that every single person there needs to feel that they're bringing something to this group, this effort, and improvisers same, but in real life, we're bringing something that's unique, and that the whole thing would not be the same without us. And maybe it wouldn't even work, but how it turns out, what we create together, everybody contributes something that's unique.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
this is a way to explore that through a weird game that we're calling Task.
Task. Yep.
So the way this game works, Natalie is going to identify a task that involves either different elements or tools or ingredients, like making something, fixing something, do the task. And then we're going to do, I guess I call this game Everything is Alive, but we're going to do a task version of Everything is Alive. So taking turns, we're going to become different elements of this task. And we're going to become it and give that a voice and a personality to whatever the element or the tool or whatever it is that is part of completing this task. And we just keep adding different elements, and we don't have to interact with each other. We're just going to become different things and be inspired by each other until we feel like we have a bunch of things and we become those things. So what is the task you're giving us?
Sure. Okay. It's cleaning your own car.
Okay. I used to own a red beetle, and I think it'd be great if we were to use that. That's the visual, cleaning my red beetle.
I am the little vacuum, the hand vacuum. I can go into a lot of little nooks and crannies. I like to really get the details. I really like to get every little piece of lint and hair and popcorn and everything that's left on the seat. I will go under the seats. I will go on the floor. I've got this little nozzle and I fit in everywhere, and I'm very, very detailed about getting it done. I'm going to get all the crumbs. Yeah.
I am the power washer. I'm coming for this red beetle. We're on the outside. We got the water full stream. We got the soap full stream. We're coming in. We're going to get every single piece of dirt. We're coming into the tires. We're coming full blast. We're going to take it down. We got everything. The license plate is clean. She's shining. Then we're going to come in with the dryer. It's full on. All right.
I am a really, really like sudsy soap. And I love to just I just love to lay on top of every inch of this baby. This red beetle is covered in slimy soap, and that's me. And when I bubble up, I am undeniable. Like I'm picking up the grime, but I look so cool doing it. And I'm slipping, everything could just slip and slide right off of me, but I'm just bubbling up, and I'm bubbling up all over this beetle.
Hello. I am coming in now with the leather cleaner portion of this process, and I am quite smooth. And I will be coming through, cleaning up every sort of the final touches on all of the seats, both front and back, left and right, going over the gear shift, clean, smooth, and a bit shiny. Thank you.
I'm a squeegee. I go down I am a very, very tight little rubber slidey thing. And let me tell you, I will get that moisture off of those windows. And those windows will not have a streak. They will be perfect. I'm squeegeeing it out. I'm going to get all of the moisture off the windows, and you will be able to see into the future.
I am the final air at the end of the car wash portion, in which you hear a silent sound and the red beetle has rolled out into the sunshine.
And scene.
Hey, and scene.
Oh, that was very fun.
I loved it. That was very fun. And I was thinking about my old red beetle, and it has the little holder for a daisy in the front. All the
Oh,
details. Yeah. Yeah. It was red. We just call it the pink lady, like the apple.
well, so that was a fun visual. That was fun. All right. So let's debrief this game. So let's talk
Yeah.
about this game in terms of leadership, whether that's leading a group, leading a family, or leading an organization. Like, how might we apply this exercise? Like for me, I'll start. I'm asking the question, then I'm answering it. But that I just love giving different voices and energies to things because it really helps me to see how different elements come together to create a whole, to break it down like
Yeah.
that.
And I think the other fun thing about this is like all of it, a couple of things. One, I think that part of this is like really using your imagination to go deep and also like the empathy muscle, right? Of like, what would this actually be like if you were the squeegee and being able to do that. And I think that that type of, and I love that like intersection with the imagination and empathy. It's like, if you can empathize with this, you can definitely empathize with the real human being, right? But it's a different way of looking at it. Because sometimes when we're confronted with real life, like, look, you and this coworker got into it. What's going on? Like have some empathy. That's hard. But there's a different way to kind of grow that muscle through improv. So it's like really going deep on what would these objects be feeling. I think the other part of it that I love with a game like this is that everybody, kind of like we were talking about earlier about Girl Scout camp outside of Anchorage, is that everybody plays a different role. And of course, like in this, all of the different voices and different characters, it can be a longer monologue, it can be a shorter monologue, it doesn't matter. Some of them have sound effects, some of them don't. But I think in improv, everybody plays a role. And I think there's often this misperception that improvisers, and for that matter, leaders, are often extroverted people. I know I'm very extroverted. I love talking to everybody, but that's not actually true. There are lots of improvisers who are introverted. There are lots of well-known leaders who are very introverted, like Stephen Colbert is an introvert, and that it's not something that's hardwired, that these are all skills that we can work on and we can work at. And we make it fun, then I think naturally we want to know more about it versus that leader I was emulating earlier about like, look, you need to have more empathy for your coworker. It's probably not going to work very well. I haven't tried
Well, a
it,
few
but
things that you said, I just want to touch on and see if we can expand
yeah.
a little bit. The idea that an exercise like this develops empathy
Mm.
is worth digging into a little bit, that it asks us to get into the shoes of how that thing would feel. And then that means that we're actually looking at how something would feel. That's what empathy is. It's very easy to kind of segue into a conversation about putting yourself in the shoes or the perspective of another person. Another level of this exercise, there's two things that I like to do with this exercise if I do this in classes or in workshops, especially in continuing ed workshops with people who work with people or people who have to work in groups and just need to really practice the idea of group dynamics. Because one is to say, like, let's just do this quickly. Of the characters that we became that are cleaning up this beetle, who would be allies? Like, in other words, of the characters I played and the characters that you played, who would be your favorite one of them? So I would say maybe the Dirt Devil, my little hand vac, would really be friends with the leather person. Like they would be allies.
Yep.
So for example, like look at like why would they be allies? And then have a group to process that. And maybe when you said the outside, cleaning the outside with the power
washer,
cleaner
right,
and the bubbles.
Yeah. Right. I think those two would be buddies.
They would definitely collaborate on something and they would appreciate each other. And they really think they're both important. Like, well, they all kind of thought they were important, which is fine. Right. It's good. And so it's one is like understanding how others feel or getting into a feeling, but then it's like how our alliances formed. And then who would also be your least favorite in this group? Because it's not personal at this point. We're just creating different elements of a car cleaning or, non-human. So it could be that the Dirt Devil doesn't appreciate the buffer at all. Like, like he thinks he's all that.
And it's such a metaphor in real life, right? Where people sometimes just don't appreciate other people's roles in a group because maybe they don't know, or they just feel like that part of the process is, it's not connected to me, right?
Or that one's high status and I'm low status.
Yeah.
That one everybody knows about, but I'm really the force behind really the quality of it. So all those dynamics are part of this game. And then you can just discuss them as those characters and then say, have you ever felt that way in maybe not in this group, but in your life? Or if you have felt that way, how do we deal with that? Because alliances are always happening in groups. They're not necessarily overt, but they're happening. And they're a force in groups. And if a leader can either recognize them and just be aware of them, that's something where the leader might be aware of something that the group doesn't have to discuss, but the leader could know. And they could be, sometimes alliances are great and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they can be toxic.
Right. And maybe in this group, like the, the Dirt Devil Union and the Buffer Union, suddenly the contract negotiations broke down or whatever, right? So suddenly they've got an alliance that doesn't have anything to do with the leather cleaner. And, there's all kinds of things in this world. But again, it's like by using improv, kind of using that imagination and creating this like whole other universe. To your point, it's not personal. And it's actually like fun to explore these dynamics, even if they're wacky or mean or weird or whatever. It's like by having that time where we can, like, it's fun, right? So then when we get out into the real world, it might not feel quite as scary.
Yeah, creative distance is always healthy. And it's what theater is. I mean, theater is looking at this human dilemma that we might really relate to and feeling all the feelings of it. And yet it's not happening to me at this moment. So recently we saw Ragtime, and Ragtime, if people haven't seen it, everyone should see this show. But it was everything that's been going on in the world. And it was a catharsis that I could not get up from the chair. During the intermission, people had to walk around me. I was sobbing in my chair because of the story is about everything. It's about immigrants. It's about racism. It's about people being really generous to each other. It's about social dynamics in every level: class, race, immigration, those three things. And pain, so much pain caused by racism and the other. It was a catharsis that I needed, and I didn't know that I needed it until I was sitting in that chair and could not get up during the intermission. A couple of people came up to me and said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, no, and no one should be. But that's what theater does. It rips your heart out in a way that is really healing in the end, because I mean, the story is painful. Reality is painful, but it's like that creative distance gives you the freedom to feel stuff, go through it, and then carry on.
Actually, though, I usually cry after every either Broadway performance or live theater that I see. And it's not necessarily because I'm sad. I'm just so amazed and overwhelmed. I think, and it might not be a full on sobbing act as you have just shared, but no, I usually, by then I'm tearing up.
Well, live performance activates a lot of emotional catharsis, just to be in the same room, feeling the same feelings with all these other people. So I get that. And I think that happens for me too. That's the magic of theater. And it's the magic of being together in something with strangers. What do you want to leave people with in terms of being a leader that is like an improviser, like an improv inspired leader, whether that's a leader of a family, a group, or in an organization?
Such a good question. I think, coming out of this last exercise, I think, and this earlier piece I was sharing about Girl Scout camp in Alaska, is I really feel strongly like everybody has a role to play. Every single parts of this, cleaning of my old red beetle, it matters. And it doesn't matter whether or not it's public facing role or not. And I think that it doesn't matter if you're introverted or extroverted. And like with my campers that day, right? I don't remember the elements of that talk show, but I certainly remember the little girl that did our theme song. But that is really in some ways arguably a side piece to that, but it really made the whole thing. And so I think it's like everyone has a role to play. And as a leader, sometimes you are the public facing person, but the ability to shift gears when you need to, the ability to play the theme song instead of being the star on the talk show, it's a really critical thing. And as a leader, and same thing with good improvisers, is like, how to kind of create that environment where people are willing to do that and they really can see each other.
Thank you for that. That was lovely. All the work you do inspires me. It always has.
Oh, Jude, me too for you.
And you've got such a great, amazing brain. Speaking a dialect of Japanese that has a unique role in the Seattle Mariners. Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you so much. How can people find you? We'll put it in the show notes, but what would you like to share about how people could find you if they want to know more?
Sure. So I have a website, which is just my name, kirstenhenning.com. And I do periodically post things on LinkedIn as well. Those are probably the two best places.
Wonderful. Check the show notes, everybody. Thank you for the amazing Kirsten Henning.
Thank you, Jude. Air kisses.
That's it for this episode of Improv in Real Life. For more info about our guests and other resources, you can visit our show notes. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please follow or subscribe wherever you listen. And if you're feeling extra generous, write us a review or share with a friend. You can also find us on Instagram at lifestage_Inc. And if you want to dive deeper into these concepts, please connect with me on Substack at Jude Treder-Wolff. To be continued, to be continued, to be continued. We need each other now more than ever. We need creativity more than ever. I hope these games and ideas inspire you in some way. And if they do, keep it going. I will too. See you next time.